You printed several things in the journal, in the publication from your journal. Can you tell us a little about your journaling efforts? And
Well,
do you still do that?
yes, sir, I do. In fact, I wrote in my journal this morning before I came. I've done a journal for, I guess, right at 40 years. And there's an absolute history of Christianity magazine in that journal. All of the ups and downs and all of the things that we discussed and that sort of thing. There never was any adversity in it, but it was honest, and it did treat criticisms with honesty, integrity. I've just always enjoyed journals. I've always written with a pen and ink, for one thing. I like fountain pens, and I like to write things down. So I don't know really how I got started doing that, to tell you the truth, but I've always kept a journal.
That's a daily discipline for you.
Yes, it is.
Boy, you ought to see his journal. I mean, it is something. It'd be a good historical document, and it's pretty too. He writes pretty.
He does.
Yeah.
Well,
Dr. Johnson of the 21st century.
It is really impressive. Those guns that he keeps.
Well, it's been a labor, a joyful thing. I tell you something I found about it too. When you're upset with somebody, if you write down why you're upset, it diminishes the intensity of your dislike right quick like. It makes you feel kind of foolish for feeling like you do sometimes. My wife has been wonderful through all of these kinds of things, the controversies, and she used to write letters to people and then turn around and tear them up. and I know why she does that. It's kind of a purgative. It kind of helps you to get rid of the junk, and the journal does that for me. It's hard to say mad at somebody when you're writing their name down. So.
And I've heard you personally say you've prayed for people who've been involved in controversy with.
I haven't. That's been very difficult for me because I am by nature fairly high-tempered. But I, like these other guys, we've all had to learn to say these guys' names that it's opposed us. We say their names out loud to God in prayer. I think they deserve that. They're brethren. And we don't want to hurt anybody, but that doesn't argue we're going to sacrifice any conviction. It just argues that we believe in prayer for people that we don't agree with.
In your last article, your final frontline column, here's a little quotation. History will research our efforts and report our contributions or the lack of such. It's 10 years past, maybe too early to allow history to say anything. What do you think history is saying?
Well, I think that it is probably too early because I don't, Ed could probably answer that question better than could I. I do think that what I said there is absolutely true, that I think for one thing, we have outlived what kind of criticisms that we had with the paper. I think it's proven to be something that helped us during that period of time when we had kind of lost sight of where we were going and we forgot the people. We got so involved in brotherhood politics that we forgot the people. So I do feel that it will one day be seen as filling a niche, and I think the void that we tried to fill at the very beginning was filled. Now, I will not tell you that we never made any mistakes. Some of my stuff I'd like to redo. And I'm not sure that some of the things that we called mistakes will not be historically very helpful to people. So I feel like it's doing what it was supposed to do. I don't think it's some big glowing kind of historical document that people are going to say, oh, look at that Christianity magazine and those guys. Listen, we were 5 guys that are trying to serve our time. That's all.
And anybody who reads it honestly and seriously understands there was no ulterior motive on anybody's part.
No, sir.
No politics, just loving the Lord and wanting other people to love Him.
That's exactly right. You've done it better than I did.
And we thought that others would understand that too.
Yeah.
And
Good point.
it came as quite a jolt when it was not seen that way. That is to me. I thought they just didn't understand, you know, and I felt as though that maybe we could help them understand. But that did not occur, and so one thing we did, we kept all that out of the magazine.
Almost.
You know. You were not writing in response.
I was not, that's correct, and we'll get to that later. But let me make a comment about these. Dee summarized the paper, I think, well. I believe that it came along at a period when there was some danger of just a factiousness that was destructive, and it was driving many congregations into what I have called a hyper-congregationalism, separatism, just withdrawing, saying, I don't want anything to do with any paper or any other kind of association. And I felt that we were providing a more unifying, a kind of presentation of what it is that we're trying to be and what we're trying to do, and that served a useful purpose. It was not a purpose that was universally agreed on, and consequently we received some criticism, for which I take criticism quite easily, actually. But I thought it was quite useful for us to be taking it, rather than for somebody else to be taking it, because we were people that, you know, were not going to be destroyed by it or anything else. So that I thought we served as a useful buffer and unifying force in a time that had the potential to become quite factious and divisive, and to drive people into very private enclaves that were not helpful.
I do think, too, that history will show that while we received the criticism, we absorbed it. We did not procreate it. We didn't make it bigger than it was. None of us, to my knowledge, ever took any of this stuff to the pulpit. It was left with the paper, and that's all. We never took it to the pulpit. We didn't call people's names and that kind of